Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Welcome to this class. In the last class, we discussed about balancing of portfolios for an organization, for a business unit first, then for the organization next. How should we balance the portfolios? So, when we discussed this portfolio balancing, three things came out to be important. One is the net cash flow, the second is the state of development, third is the risk involved. Net cash flow, all these portfolios, when we are looking at, we are balancing this portfolio with respect to the investments made or proposed to be made or already made. So, this is the way we look at it. So, suppose we have already made an investment, what is the type of cash flow realization that is taking place from that investment in that particular business unit. Now, that brings you to the question, a business unit may be having number of products and number of product lines also. Then what are we really looking at? We are looking at the net cash flow with respect to each product and each product line. What do we mean by that? A product line may be consisting of several products. So, we find out, suppose let us say a product line has got some 6 products. We find out about these 6 products, what is the type of net cash flow which is coming in. Some product might be doing very well in the market. So, it may be raking in a higher net cash flow. Some product may not be doing that well in the market. So, may not be having a very high cash flow receipt. So, this is the way you look at it, and now you sum it up over the product lines of the business unit. A business unit may be having some more than one product line. Then what happens? You find out the sum of these net cash flows, the sigma of that, how it is coming. Then when you put this analysis in the perspective, you will know which product requires more attention in that particular business unit, which product and consequently which product line also. So, to that product and product line you have to pay more attention. So, this is the way you start looking at the net cash flow analysis. The state of development comes in almost simultaneously. So, sometimes when you find that your cash flows are not really very high, that is a net cash flow from a product, you start going to the state of development. At what stage is this product? Is it in the embryonic stage, or is it in the growth stage, or is it in the maturity stage, or is it towards the decline stage? Why is it calling for higher investment, or why the receipts are less? So, these are linked again. Now, in order to take a decision on this 1 and 2, there is a certain amount of risk that is involved. Suppose you say this product is in the introduction stage, so it requires support. In order to support this project, we should fund. The question comes, how much funding, how long? that is related to the market, because suppose there is a competitor coming into the product market very soon, then the product will face very tough competition. When the product faces very tough competition, then the risk of investment also becomes extremely important. So, this is what I just mentioned also in the last class. Now, with respect to almost all the software major companies in India, there is a risk analysis division which keeps on tracking the risk that is involved in the investment of the companies. So, whether it is project A, project B, project C, whatever it is, they start advising the company on the risks that is involved in the project with respect to execution of the project and with respect to what might be the tangible, intangible results, all those types of things. So, the company's top management will naturally be guided by this risk analysis division of the company. So, sometimes some of these risk analysis divisions are headed by vice presidents of the company also. So, they advise the company on whether it is right to invest in a particular portfolio, in a particular project, all those types of things. So, this is where this portfolio becomes balancing becomes extremely important. Now, in order to help the strategic manager in this task, he can rely on some matrices, portfolio matrices. That is what I just mentioned in the last class. I said we will look at a few matrices. One of those matrices which one of the common matrices which this strategic manager relies upon, he tries to draw upon, is this Boston Consulting Group's growth share matrix. So, this is commonly referred to as the BCG matrix. So, for the first time this BCG matrix was put out in this Journal of Long Range Planning in February 1977 rather. So, this is the what does it how does it look like? This is how it looks like. It is as you can see, it is a semi-log graph. What do we mean by a semi-log graph? One side of the graph is normal, another side is having logarithmic values. That is why it is called a semi-log graph. So, if you look at this graph, the y axis is normal. The y axis represents the market growth rate. The x axis is the relative market share, which is having logarithmic values. So, this is a graph of market growth rate versus relative market share and a semi-log graph. Now, what does it tell you? If you see, there are 4 quadrants in this graph. The first quadrant is mentioned as question marks. It is a 2 by 2 matrix, as you can see. The first quadrant is referred to as question marks, the second quadrant is referred to as stars, the third cash cows, the fourth dogs. What is this relative market share? The relative market share here refers to the market share of the relevant business with respect to the market share of its largest competitor or the leader. How do you really stand with respect to the leader? Hence, a relative market share of above 1 belongs to that of the leader. So, you may be going when you are going above 1, you are really going, you are really acting like a leader in the marketplace. So, what about the growth rate? It is expressed as a percentage, that is a business growth rate is expressed as a percentage of the market growth rate. It is normally assumed that a business with a growth rate of 10% is attractive, 10% and above is attractive. So, this is suppose you say this business has a growth rate of 10%, the company would be interested. Less than 10%, it will start thinking whether it is worth. Now, with respect to all this, how does it look like? If you really see each of these matrices, you are seeing different sizes of circles. So, this is each circle bigger, one circle bigger, one circle smaller. How do you really draw these circles? This is given to you in this page number 123 of my book, Building the BCG Matrix. So, how do you build this BCG matrix? Just reading from that. The first step would be to the various activities of the company are classified into different business segments or SBUs. So, the first step is put the companies under the different SBU modes. So, how many SBUs are there for the company, you decide. The second, the growth rate of the market is determined for each of these SBUs and is plotted on a linear scale. Third, that is your y, the second happens to be your y axis. The third, the assets employed by each of the business unit are compiled to determine the relative size of the business in relation to the company. Kindly note that. So, suppose you say 100 rupees, in that particular business you might have invested only 5 rupees. Then the assets of the company, that is 100 rupees, how much have you invested in that? Only 5 rupees in that. That is a compilation that is next done. The relative market share for different market segments are estimated and are plotted on a log scale, that is the x axis. Now, how do you determine the position of each business unit? That is given to you in point number 5. The position of each business unit is plotted on a matrix of business growth rate and relative market share. The size of the business is represented by a circle with a diameter corresponding to the assets invested in the business. So, 5 is your, let us say in the example which I quoted, suppose 100 is the total investment in the business, 5 is in your particular business unit, 5 represents the diameter of the circle. And the radius of the circle is is given by r equal to root of small p into r squared, where capital R is a numeral proportional to the sales of the company and small p is the sales of the business unit as a percentage of the total sales of the company. So, both these figures you should be having from the company side in order to draw this small circle, this circle of the business units. This is how you would go about it. Now, what does this question marks mean? These question marks are like wildcats, some problem child sometimes. So, you invest in some business, it may suppose it becomes a problem child, what do you do? You want to get rid of it before it becomes highly problematical. So, before it becomes too problematical, you may say let me get rid of the whole thing. So, what will happen? This from this question marks only you may see some of these business units disappearing or going towards docks. So, this route can go towards docks right from question marks only, but you do not want to invest in a business without prior homework, that is doing without good homework and doing a prior analysis. So, you want it to be, you do not want that unit in which you have business unit to go into docks right from question marks. The objective of the strategic planner would be to convert that business to star to the extent that it is possible. That is, he would like to move that particular business from the question marks to star. That is good for the company, because the stars are the leaders for the company. They tend to give more visibility and also bring higher sales to the company. In order to retain that star position, it may require some investment, but that investment may also be justified, because you may retain that star position for a longer period in the marketplace. So, there is, you may justify it, that is a risk manager may justify it by saying yes, we can go ahead with the investment in this particular star. So, in other words, a strategic manager, his aim would be to convert as many question marks as possible into stars. So, these question marks sometimes referred to as problem child, sometimes referred to as wildcats. So, sometimes when it becomes highly problematical may go into docks, all these types of things which I just mentioned. What about stars? They are the market leaders, they bring that visibility to the company. So, the more the number of stars, the better it is for the company. What do you mean by better it is for the company? Better for the company's health. So, a company will have number of stars, let us say, suppose it has number of stars, it means that it has so many business units which are leaders in themselves. The objective of the strategic manager, as I mentioned, would be to convert as many question marks as possible to stars. So, that is good for the company's health. So, the more the number of stars, the company is in better limelight. Now, the next question that comes is, they also justify, as I mentioned to you, the investment if it is required to keep them longer in the stars, that is the risk analysis group of a company can also justify that investment. Now, what about the cash cows? These are businesses of the business unit which have gone through the phases of question marks and stars, and they have moved to this cash cows. That is, a business when it starts, it will be in question marks. So, the objective of the strategic planner or the strategic manager would be, or in conjunction with the marketing manager, would be to move it to stars. So, after retaining it as long as possible in that stars, this particular business comes to the, what do you call, cash cows. Now, when it comes to the cash cows, what is the characteristic of this cash cow? So, here the company can milk this business without too much of investment. That is, it has established a name for itself in the marketplace, the product is known, the company is also has also established itself in the marketplace. So, all this will contribute to the company getting returns from this particular investment on a regular basis without too much of investment. So, in other words, the risk that is involved is minimum with respect to a cash cow. So, if you really look at this particular graph, you have this business unit number 6, where you are really towards the left end of this graph, and the company gets a constant return, that is, it keeps on getting returns on this investment without having too much to invest. Now, suppose this 6 slided towards the center, let us say it came to the center, then what is going to happen? Then what is this? This cash cow is slowly moving towards the dogs, that is, it is going towards the decline stage. So, that is the time when, as a strategic manager, you should see what is the salvage value that you can get through that particular business. Okay. So, it is going to get into the decline stage. When it is getting into the decline stage, it is essential for you to salvage as much value as possible. Okay. So, this is the essence of this particular BCG group matrix. So, if you look at it, this particular matrix on the right side of this, I have given some strategies. What is it? I have said a strategic planner would like to build for question marks. He would like to hold on for strong cash cows like the one which you are seeing here. He would like to harvest for a weak cash cow, and it can also be used for question marks and dogs. Then divest for question marks and dogs which are a drag on the company's profits. So, if, as I told you, sometimes these question marks are problem child or wildcats. So, at that point of time, it is possible that you may like to divest from the question mark stage itself, that is, try to salvage as much as value as possible. So, this is the type of thing which you might like to do. Now, as a strategic planner, what are you trying to focus on? That is, as a strategic planner in this type of business unit, what will be your focus? In the planning side, your focus will be to establish a viable fit between the organization's objectives and the changing market opportunities. That is the objective of the whole process. In order to do that, what will you do? The key that you will employ as a strategic planner is either investment portfolio, the future profit potential, and consequently the strategy to be adopted. So, the investment portfolio, the future profit potential, and the strategy to be adopted hold the key for the strategic planning success of this business unit. So, this is where this BCG matrix can be helpful for a strategic planner. Now, this is one of the earliest matrices that was brought out by this company BCG, Boston Consulting Group. Now, as in every field, lot of developments have taken place even in this field of evaluation of portfolios as well. So, this BCG group itself started developing, in the sense developing, undergoing modifications. So, the BCG group, BCG matrix itself now comes out with what is called a new BCG matrix. This new BCG matrix was unveiled in this year 1989, So, again it is a 2 by 2 matrix. So, what does it give? It looks at the competitive advantage, that is the size of the competitive advantage, and the number of approaches to achieve that competitive advantage. So, if you really see in this, the 4 quadrants are: one is specialization, second fragmented, third is stalemate, fourth is volume. So, suppose the number of approaches to achieve competitive advantages can go from few to many. So, this could be the size of the advantage. Now, in the next slide which I put out to you, I will just bring out to you some things, what is meant by this fragmented, what is meant by this specialization, what is meant by this stalemate, what is meant by this volume. What is fragmented? Fragmented means small and regionalized. So, you are not in every market, you are in a particular niche market of your own. So, the segment is something with which you are very familiar. So, if you take let us say the well known automotive brand of TVS, let us say, any product which it launches, it would like to first launch it in the south, because the name of TVS in the south is almost synonymous with quality, efficiency, and you name it. So, when you say this product is from the house of TVS, automatically the South Indian market looks up to it and says, let us give this product a trial coming from the house of TVS. So, TVS would like to take advantage of that regional niche which it has created over so many years, and then move to the other markets in the country. So, it may start from south, then introduce it in the west, north, like that. So, the fragmented stands for small and regionalized, profitability not related to size. Then advantage is gained by focus, then there is no premium on growth. I have taken here the example of specialty restaurants or designer labels. So, if you really see some of these specialty restaurants, let us say in Bangalore, you have this restaurant called MTR. It specializes in a few dishes and he does not go beyond those dishes. Go to that restaurant at any point of time, you have only those dishes. You want some other dish, it is not there. For him, he does not want to grow too much, no premium on growth, he keeps that. So, this is the way a fragmented market works. Then what about the specialization markets? Contrasted to the fragmented markets, the specialization markets are focused segments. That is what I said of the TVS. So, they are in the auto business, they are focused segments, they are steep learning curves. So, though the example that I am giving you here is that of Cray research in the field of computers, supercomputers. So, Cray research always goes deep into the supercomputers in the field of supercomputers. So, they have done very good work in this. What about this stalemate? where it is difficult to gain advantage. That is that market where it is difficult to gain advantage. So, competitive advantage often in such types of market is the sheer sustaining power. I have given an example here of Kellogg's in India, that is this corn flakes. Why did I take this example? There are so many small scale units in India which bring out tasty corn flakes, but do not have a great brand name. They may not pack it very neatly as Kellogg's. They also pack it in a good plastic this thing and sell it in different places, but not like the packaging resorted to by Kellogg's. So, if you really look at a big name like Kellogg's for its corn flakes, that is its product, where is the competition coming from? The real competition is coming from all these small players, because they are able to put out tasty corn flakes at probably a much lower rate or price than Kellogg's. So, this is what you can see in most of these places where you have the corn flakes of a lesser known player and Kellogg's side by side. So, you can just make a comparison of the price, you will find that the price of this particular corn flake much lower compared to Kellogg's. Then how does Kellogg's get competitive advantage in this type of a scenario? Kellogg's will get competitive advantage in this type of a scenario because of its status, the brand status that it has achieved in different global markets. So, it has achieved as a global player having vast resources at its command. So, can sustain for a longer time in the market without having to bother about too much about profits. What does it mean? To put it simply, let us say 10 packs of the small players corn flakes go, 1 pack of Kellogg's goes, let us say, that is sold in the with a particular shop. Kellogg's will not get too much worked up on that, it will wait, because it has the wherewithal to wait, which the smaller player may not have. Suppose the smaller player, instead of the 10, it becomes 5 for him, let us say, assume that scenario. Then it becomes difficult for him to survive, because he was expecting a minimum 10 business. This intrusion of Kellogg may be through incentives or through different methods, he might have just pulled some of the customers of the small player towards his side. Maybe he may offer a toy for using this Kellogg, or he may offer a game, all those types of things free for the child for using this Kellogg product. So, all this might pull the customer to the Kellogg side. Then what is going to happen? The person who is going to suffer is a smaller player. So, this is what it means. Competitive advantage often is the sheer sustaining power. How does he get the sustaining power? He gets the sustaining power because he has got the resources and the brand at his command. What about volume? Volume, where there are economies of scale and IRS operates. What is IRS? Increasing returns to scale, that is, suppose let us say I produce more. When I produce more, what is going to happen? I expect the sales to be more. When I get the sales to be more, it is very probable that I may get higher returns. But what is the constraint here? You may be constrained by market segmentation and differentiation. So, that is, you should be able to differentiate your product from the competitor's product. You should be able to market your product in a segment where the competitor is not able to make a heavy dent into your market segment. All this is best amplified by the present car industry in India. Look at the present car industry in India. So, it is a severe competition. So, name it, all types of cars. You want the luxury car, it is there. So, the luxury market segment. You do not want the luxury car, you want a good car, that segment is also there. Now, you want a car, it is neither falling in the luxury car, it is neither falling in the good car, all these types of market, you want a car. It can be a small car, it hardly matters. Now, for that small car market, you find there are so many players virtually sweating it out. So, you have the Maruti 800s, now the latest intrusion into this Maruti 800s market space is the Nano. So, the result is suppose you are a buyer who wanted to buy the Maruti 800, the market offers you a choice, why do not you look at this Nano, find out whether this Nano meets your needs or requirements and take a call whether you want to buy a Maruti 800 or go in for this Nano. You may say Maruti 800 in the Indian market for nearly 26 long years, why not I try this Nano which is there for the last 1 year or less in the marketplace. So, what is the buyer's psyche like? The buyer's psyche here is to identify himself with the latest models of the car. So, Nano for him may represent one of the late entrants or the recent entrants into this type of market segment. So, this is where this now what is going to happen. Now, in this type of business like the nano car business, how does the company like Tata's make profits, or how does it make profits? It is by economies of scale. So, the more number of units of the car sold, it is possible that the company may be able to have a better this thing in this. So, this is the way BCG matrix has transformed itself into this in the present day circumstances. This is the way strategies are getting changed in the present day scenario. So, this is explained to you in my book. So, and what I have also explained here. Now, let us look at one more matrix before we, this is what is called the GE matrix. Why is it called the GE matrix? Because it was put out by this company General Electric. So, what does it have? If you really see, on the x axis it has got business strength, on the y axis it has got market attractiveness. If you really see this, how is it going? It is going from 1 to 5 on the business strength, and again it is going from 1 to 5 on the market attractiveness. So, this is the way the whole screen, as we see the GE matrix screen or the GE business screen is going. So, this has, if you see compared to the BCG matrix, more data. It has got more data compared to the BCG matrix. So, this, if you look at this data, it includes market growth rate, profitability and pricing practices. So, the business strength includes data on market share, profitability and size. Now, how are these individual product lines or business units are plotted as circles? The area of each circle is related to industry sales. The pie within the circles depicts the market share of the product line or business unit. Just repeating again, the area of each circle represents the industry sales. The pie within the circles represents depicts the market share of the product or business unit. So, how do you draw this G business screen? So, you have to follow certain steps. Step number 1, criteria using factors to determine the industry attractiveness for each product line or business unit have to be selected. It can be on a scale of 1 very attractive to a scale of 5 very unattractive to a scale of 5 very attractive. So, this industry attractiveness can be something like size of market, rate of growth of sales and cyclic nature of business, the nature of competition including vulnerability to foreign competition, then susceptibility to technological obsolescence and new products, entry conditions and social factors, and then the profitability. What about the step 2? The key factors for success for each product line or business unit have to be selected, and the business strength or competitive position should be rated on a scale 1 very weak to 5 very strong. What are the factors, typical factors? Can be market share and capacity, growth rate, location and distribution, management skill, workforce harmony, technical excellence including product and process engineering, then the company image. So, if you see the total of the weights, whether it is with respect to the market attractiveness or the industry attractiveness and the competitive position, both should add up to 100. So, the rating you can go from 1 to 5 or 1 to 10 also many times, so that you can get a better figure. So, that when you do that, you will get to have a score for the company. Now, after doing this second stage, what are you going to do in the step 3? Each product line or the current position of the business unit can be plotted as shown in this figure. So, you can plot this particular thing as shown in this figure. Then when you plot this, how do you get to draw the inference? The company's future portfolio can be plotted assuming that the present corporate and business strategy remain, that is, you are not going to drastically change. Then this gives the gap between the projected and desired portfolio, and it can help in reviewing the company's current mission, objectives, strategies and policies. So, this is the way you can, this business screen can be made use of. So, what is the type of strategies that you are looking at? If you look at, if you see when you are going towards this stage, that is 1 to 2.33, when you are in this type of a circle, you are looking at harvesting or divesting. When you are looking at this type of business units, you are looking at selectivity or earnings, that is, you do not want to divest them immediately, want to retain them. then when you are looking at some of these types of units, that is this with this grayish tinge here, you may say that these are the units where I would like to invest or grow, that is these joints or these clutches, they are the ones which are going to hold. Similarly, hydraulics pumps to a certain extent can be made to come out as a star, all those types of things. So, you can be a strong player in this market. The business screen, that is a G business screen, with all that has got certain shortcomings. What are the shortcomings? So many factors. When so many factors can become complicated, cumbersome. So, then why it is so? Because you are numerically estimating all this. When this numerical estimate sometimes may be questioned for objectivity. Have you been really objective in giving this? So, this is sometimes this, though you may say it we are very objective, might be subjective. This type of inference, there is a possibility that you may tend towards that. Then suppose it is a new product or a new business. The position of this new product or new business cannot be effectively depicted on this screen, difficult to depict on this business screen. So, this is the type of thing which you are likely to have, but however, with all that it can be a good source of terrific insights to the strategic planner. So, can give with reference to different business units more factors compared to the BCG matrix, can tell him where does each business stand, and can give point out to him the different strategies also. If you really look at these circles, if you see this, take this one particular circle here, the joint circle, you are really seeing this is slightly moving down, then you are seeing this hydraulic pumps going down like this, probably towards the cash cows. All this gives lot of pointers to the strategic planner. So, can give terrific pointers to the strategic planner and say how the business is moving and what are the types of strategies he should draw upon. This is also a very important matrix. So, this matrix is used by many people to build upon the BCG matrix, that is they make use of the BCG matrix first, then make use of this matrix to build upon this. So, this we will give, I will in the next class I will try to give the strategies with respect to each of the cells in which this G business screen, where the business might find itself. So, we will stop here. Thank you.